It's not what you say, it's the legacy you leave. Hi, I'm Scott.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And this is Church is Lame, the podcast where we fix the church by talking about the stupid things churches do that break the entire body.
You know, Scott, I can't imagine that there is anything stupid the church has done this past week.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, my. I would love to come to the week where we can actually say that with a straight face. Wouldn't that be something?
All that, that'll be, we're just going to have a 5-second episode. Like, sorry, we didn't screw up this week. Out.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Peace. We're going fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So first up, interesting sermon. Matt Chandler is the pastor of Village Church in Texas. You can literally see Joel Osteen's megachurch from Village Church here. I would also call Matt a celebrity pastor of sorts.
Okay.
He kind of came up with this resurgence of new reformers, Mark Driscoll, all these guys. And so out of the reformers, he tends to be more cerebral than most of the reformers who are just mostly wannabe alpha males kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in this week's sermon, he came to the pulpit with a response to the Roe v. Wade ruling being overturned.
That's surprising.
But to my surprise, it was a softer response than we've been seeing from most churches. So here's one quote that I pulled out there.
Okay.
I want to celebrate with sobriety and with a call to action. So before you wave those pom-poms, you better understand what's at stake and the moment that we're in. This had better not be about legislation. This better be bigger than that for us as the church. And I think you and I, Mark, we would agree with that sentiment on its face.
On its face, yes.
Right? Like, this is not just a moment about winning a court case and now being able to legislate at the state level in a different way, right? This had better be about now that we've won this battle and more babies are going to be born because we said that's important to us, that life is sacred. Well, now the church has a responsibility to care for those babies and those moms, right? And
well,
so
that's
on the
what
face
you and
of
I
it,
would say about it.
Right. On the face of it, life is good, and we're in total agreement. The reason why this gets a little bit weird is because, how do you put this? It's all hat and no cattle, right? What's the other way of saying that? Like, they don't have any skin in the game, so to speak, right? Matt Chandler gets to get up in his pulpit and kind of speak to both sides, right? Kind of wink to both sides. And on the one side, he's like, hey, I'm Mr. Woke. I'm all about, caring for these babies and these young women. And I'm actually not one of these guys who thinks that hey, who cares? Now that they're born, let welfare take care of them and let them fall into poverty and let them fall into drug use. And who cares about the outcome after they're born? So I don't claim to be that guy. But at the same time, he has no obligation to put his money or his church's money where his mouth is. And he doesn't have to piss off his own congregation by handing out our tithe money as welfare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of, tests, it's like, if it's a child out of wedlock, or any of that stuff, it's like, it's going to be obscene, really. And I feel like, we've talked about this before, like there's just all this posturing that you hear out of Christians, like, we have to defeat Roe versus Wade because then we can make abortions illegal and then abortions will stop. It's like, well, no, it won't. But then, you all have a very bad track record of actually ever doing anything to care for the living humans that are caused by this situation.
Right.
It's like, you just we said it before, it's a punitive approach.
Yeah.
Toward things. And trying to say this better be bigger than that for us as the church. It's like, you're making this this grand thing, right?
Right.
But you're not going to challenge people to do anything actually meaningful. Right.
Yeah. As long as I've been a regular attender of church, which is to say since 1998, Every pastor that I've ever experienced in my Christian lifetime has to carefully parse words, because every pastor, because they have experienced the calling, let's call it the calling, right? The burning bush moment with God. You are going into professional ministry, right? They've heard the calling, and they know without a shadow of a doubt that there is an absolute wrong and an absolute right. There is absolute compassion and there is absolute disdain, right? Pastors above anybody know about the inconceivableness of following God, right? But they have to keep parsing words, or else these people who put money in the basket that keep this church machine alive will evaporate in an instant because they're that fickle, you know? And so it becomes, it's not a conundrum. It's like the pastors are not willing to do the thing that God called them to do because really they're serving the other master. You know what I mean? And they've forgotten which master they're really supposed to be serving.
Yeah, like there's the master. I'm not even sure what master that is. You know, I'm not going to say
God. God.
you
You know, you serve God.
I mean, the other master. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should be serving God, but like they're not going to. And
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, because we had talked at some point, like, you know, like what's the, like, what are Christians, like, what are all these evangelicals going to do if Roe versus Wade gets overturned? Like, what are they, like, that's like such a huge part of their identity. Like, what are they going to do? And like, they have a whole list of things that they're going to do now. But the problem is that like the things that we should be doing for like caring for the poor, you know, doing with the work to try to prevent unwanted pregnancies.
Say what?
Yeah, I know. It's like, do what you have to do to like prevent the pregnancies. And if you want to prevent them, because it's like, there's all these problems. Like, you know, when you look at, you know, income, you know, abortion is the thing that happens in poverty much more than not in poverty, by a lot.
Yeah.
So like there is a link between poverty and abortion as an option. You know, there's often a denial for, like, you know, health of the mother is not a consideration for a lot of people. And that's not very Christian, you know, right there. I mean, it's like, if you cannot make an exception for the health or life of the mother, you are not being a Christian toward that woman, just period. You know, when George Carlin, you know, ranted about, you know, pro-life as anti-woman, you know, I don't want to agree with that, but unfortunately, a lot of the pro-life people have this belief set that really is kind of anti-woman under the auspice of saying, well, we're taking care of women. Like, there was some article this past week I saw, and it was like, it was just smarmy garbage. It was like, you know, like, why overturning Roe versus Wade is good for women. And it gave a few, I should have probably pulled that one up for this episode, but I didn't. And because it just had some dumb stuff in there. Like,
yeah, but it gets us into waters that are like way out there.
Yeah.
You know, it can, like I said, I don't want us to be a political podcast, and I don't think it's necessarily your or my job to tell people what they know over and over again about what is proven to reduce abortion versus what their feeble minds pretend reduce abortions. You know, they know all this, and it hasn't been an effective argument. So I don't want to be the perpetuator of non-effective arguments. I would rather find better arguments, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like if you have chronic headaches and you decided that the solution to getting rid of your chronic headaches is Tylenol. It's like, no, the headaches are still going to happen. The Tylenol, like, that's what this is. This is Tylenol. And like, it's a lot of feel-good Christian Tylenol. It's like they want to make people feel like they're part of some big movement, but they're not going to, words is hard. They're going to continue to not do the things that we are called to do to care for those people who need that care.
Yep. Yeah, let me just put a cap on this by saying that I don't think the church understands this yet, but we are now that Roe v. Wade's been overturned, it is put up or shut up time. And it's not going to be what we say that is our testimony. It is going to be what we do. And if the church is not there to be the safety net for these young women, we are going to see people leaving the church in numbers that we've not seen in decades.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong.
Yeah, I hope the church rises to the occasion, but I know better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I'm at with this.
Like, we wouldn't have a podcast if the church could do better.
Exactly.
Oh,
All right, moving on. Okay, this one was really weird. This next
okay.
story. Pentecostal pastor, Brazilian Pentecostal pastor, sentenced to 18 years, 6 months. I don't know what the extra 6 months are for anti-Semitic hate speech. So I'm not going to get this guy's name right. Tupirani de Hora Lores, sentenced to 18 years for calling for, don't misunderstand me here, a second Holocaust. Quote,
Hmm?
God, what have you done in World War II? You must do again. This is what we ask for in our prayers to you. Justice, justice, justice. End quote.
Yeah. So, like, what?
Exactly. Like here, let me be the first to say that I hate people with a passion. Like, I am not good with people. I'm not a people person. I'm just not, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, they annoy me. They get on my nerves. They wear me down. Like, I can't spend that much time with people before I feel like I need to get away and recharge. Never, never, never on my worst enemy have I ever felt like you deserve what Hitler did to the Jews. Never. There's never, ever been a time. And I wholeheartedly subscribe to the mantra of, if you ever experience a Nazi, punch them, you know?
Yeah. This, and like the obscenity here. I mean, there's a lot of it.
Like
It's
so
just,
many layers to that onion.
but like the thing I would say, like, what you did in World War II, you must do again. Like, so you think that the first Holocaust was God's work? Like,
Well, was an object lesson.
yeah, it was like, like God just picked the wrong Nazi moron to like kill all the Jews. Is that like, I mean, like what the F, man?
Yeah. This one is all over the place.
And it's not like the church, doesn't have a long and varied history of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It does.
Right.
But like, I'd like to think that the current church kind of recognizes that that's bad.
Right. Here's the part that's a little bit like mind dissolving for me is like the church has always had this interesting supportive relationship for Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get it, right? Because Israel's just lobbing missiles and bombs over innocent people everywhere, right? But that's another conversation, right?
Yeah.
But this is not the Jews. These are not the Jews that anybody has issues with, right? The Jews that everybody has issues with are like the Hollywood moguls in California and the bankers in New York, It's like these are really like the evil devils that you want to obliterate off the face of the earth? I just don't get it. Like when there really is like this nation of Jews that are kind of like lost the plot somewhat, in the modern cesspool that we call the Middle East.
Yeah, and part of me wants to like wonder, right, that because of this, this horrible anti-Semitism, like like with that the tendency of evangelical Christianity to like defend its own, like uncritically, like I wonder like how many Christians want to defend this guy because he's a pastor, but can't because he's clearly a Nazi.
Right. Well, here's the deal. This is another layer to the onion. There's no American Christian that wants to defend this guy because he's not white.
Well,
Let's just call it what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's not smuggling guns, I guess. So that's a thing.
I mean, once again, there's a reason why people are coming to the defense of Torben Sondergaard, right? Because he looks like what he looks like.
Yes.
So and there's a reason why this guy won't even be a postmark, in the memories of the church.
Yeah, and then like I'm like part of me just wants like this guy to, like in jail here, to be in the same cell as a Jew.
Yeah.
Not that I want a Jew to be put in the cell with him just because they're Jewish. I would like it to be a criminal who just happens to be Jewish.
Right. Now, on the other hand, 18 years for calling for a Holocaust. I mean, heck, we have a president in the United States who called for the overthrow of the government, and nothing's happened to him yet.
But that's a political thing. We won't
That's
get
a
into
political thing, but just saying, like if you think this guy deserves 18 years, there are other guys who've kind of done the same thing. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Moving right along.
All right.
This is perhaps my second favorite story of the week, just because of how simple and succinct it is. But from Real Clear Religion, we have the story, by not changing, Mormons now look liberal on abortion.
This has got to be the most absurd looking headline that I've seen so far.
But it is actually the one that is the easiest to wrap your mind around, right? For as long as I can remember, Americans have had a tenuous but sustainable conception of how we can all live together on the topic of abortion. And that is to say, we all hate it, but we understand that sometimes there are medical reasons that justify it. And in the case of incest and rape, we understand the difficulties in allowing a pregnancy to continue under those circumstances. And so there's always been this détente that as much as we hate it, we will carve out a space for abortion in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Mormons are no different. They hate abortion as well, but they've actually codified it into their laws that, hey, when a medical expert comes in and says we need to do this, then we need to do this. And in the case of rape and incest, we will also create an exclusion. And that is a stance that they've had for decades, and they continue to have. And by not budging here in 22, they look like the red-headed stepchild of Christianity in America.
Well, I mean, one might argue that the Mormons are the redheaded stepchild of Christianity.
And I said, and he spikes it.
I mean, I have nothing against Mormons as humans, just their theology and the whole Book of Mormon and all that nonsense.
Sure.
I take great issue with that, especially since Mormons have done more work to prove that their Book of Mormon is wrong than anything else.
I understand that. At the same time, I actually have had Mormons come to my door, knock, and do their spiel. And I've invited them in and had these guys sit down, and what people don't tell you is that they're not given much money to go out and do what they do, and they're not given a whole lot of support. And it's tough. It is tough. So knowing this, when they came to my door, instead of just saying, no, thank you, go away, I invited them in and I engaged them in a long conversation that gave them the ability to sit down and relax and have a free meal. You know?
When Mormon kids show up to your front door, feed them
by all means. Let them sit down and entertain them, and go ahead and go along for the ride, whether or not you're gonna agree with them in the end. Just give them a break, because they are doing what they truly believe is the right thing. And these are, for the most part, kids, so cut them some slack. So while I totally agree with you about their theology, I have a soft spot in my heart for Mormon kids, especially,
Yeah, they're not, generally speaking, bad people. I mean, you can go and watch Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey on Netflix and see what a bad Mormon looks like.
Right. Yeah.
And there's Murder Among the Mormons. It's another fun one.
Yeah.
And there are crooked people out there like anywhere else. But for the most part, they're good people. But it just seems weird that Mormons, who have kind of historically been considered uptight by Christians, that Christians have just power slid right past them.
Yeah. We make fun of them because they don't like modern conveniences, and we think that's weird, but they see us kind of regressing back to medieval times, and they're just like, well, hey, we're glad we're not those Christians. So I was amused by that story, and I thought just because it's so you don't have to talk about it much, right? The story kind of is very clear on where it stands, and kind of makes a lot of sense that it's not really Jesus that has changed. It's not really culture that has changed. It really is the church that is changing in real time right before our eyes and just becoming more hateful and more and less willing to deal with anybody on any other terms other than their own.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's I think that the Mormons here are when they're making exceptions for
Yeah.
like life of the mother or for rape or incest. I think they think that they've looked at the situation and been like, okay, well, these are the cases in which like we cannot object to it, because what's more objectionable than a woman being raped or somebody being, well, I mean, incest a lot of times is rape anyway.
Right.
I mean, if
Right.
not like just merely de facto, but it's like legitimately just
Yeah.
forcible, right? So it's like, but like what this is despicable. Like this is a despicable act. Like you cannot, tell somebody that they can't undo what happened in this despicable act, and you can't kill a woman, because you refused to remove the fetus that's killing her. It's like
Yeah.
this is just really how you love women, at least in
Yeah.
one way, right?
Right.
And that's what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about loving people. So it's like, so the next time you want to accuse Mormons of being regressive, remember this.
Remember this. Indeed. All right. So my final story is my feel good story for the week. I favorited this story the minute I saw the headline.
Mm-hmm.
Religionnews.com. The Dalai Lama marks 87th birthday by opening a library and a museum. And this just kind of tickled me because when you see Christian leaders in their sunset years, they are typically taking a victory lap. Like, look at all the people's lives I've changed. Look at all the monuments I've built. Look at all the churches I've built. Look
Mm-hmm.
at look at my net worth. Look at how many radio shows I have. Look at how many TV stations I'm syndicated across. And here we are, the probably what is going to be the final what do you want to call it? The final cap on this man's life and career is a library that is dedicated to telling the story of liberating Tibet and to celebrating the culture and the religion of Buddhism and wanting to see it preserved and live on. You know, I am not a Buddhist. My mother's a Buddhist. And as
Mm-hmm.
Christianity gets more and more regressive, it becomes harder and harder not to see some of the beauty in alternative religions.
Right.
You know,
It's when you look at the Dalai Lama and what he does in his
yeah,
life, the rather unfortunate conclusion that you have to come to is that he's been more Christian than well, all of us for the most part.
yeah,
And like he doesn't profess Christ as Lord, and so there's that theological issue there. But in terms of like living out the values of loving others as yourself, the Dalai Lama has done a good job of this.
yeah,
And that's we can't look at this like this isn't the church being lame, it's the Dalai Lama, but he's pointing out, like, by virtue of his virtue, he points to the lameness of the church.
right. Like you want to talk about a person who consistently contends for the sacredness of life. You want to see a person who contends for the
Mm-hmm.
sacredness of love, for the sacredness of humility, for the sacredness of compassion, for the sacredness of shalom. You know, even though, like you said, he doesn't do it in the name of Christ, like there's no doubt that Christ would recognize the life that the Dalai Lama has breathed. To put it in like a biblical kind
Mm-hmm.
of vocabulary, that we breathe things into being. You know, God breathed the world, He breathed humanity into being, and the Dalai Lama, in his own way, has breathed life into the story of his own people. You know, and not in a way that makes us go, "Oh, those Tibetans, they're so proud or so arrogant," but you really do see their cause as righteous and
Mm-hmm.
and a story worthy of being told.
Yeah, and quite frankly, sticking up for, I mean, at least to me, sticking up for Tibet is a lot more morally justifiable than sticking up for Israel at this point.
That's yeah, That would seem to be a no-brainer to anybody with a functioning brain. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because it does become, for me, it becomes harder and harder to kind of toe the party line on, well, hey, you just got to understand that Israel's God's people, and they're just kind of set apart, and they're always going to be treated a little bit differently, and you can't apply the same standards to them. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can. I'm pretty sure I can apply the same standards of behavior to them.
Yeah, like I can definitely apply, the Bible to Jews.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I'm only using the Old Testament,
Yeah.
I can be pretty savagely critical of Israel at this point.
Right. Right. And to be perfectly clear, like most Jews have no problem with Jesus other than the fact that they don't believe he's the Messiah. But like, go ahead and preach a Sermon on the Mount and, say lovely things. They don't have a problem with that,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, interesting. But yeah, I got a kick out of that last story. It made me feel good. So I was like, yay.
Yeah.
All right, YouTube. We do have a new subscriber, and that's always kind of a little surprising that the number goes up instead of going down sometimes.
Yeah.
But Ann Blythe, if you're out there and you're watching, thank you so much for your support. We so much appreciate it. And speaking of support, if you're out there and you want to find us, we're everywhere. Just put Church's Lame into your search box, and you'll find us on, the YouTubes and the internets and Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff. And, we always appreciate it when you do things like click the buttons that say, like or notify or subscribe. That's always super, super important. It helps with the algorithm. So please, by all means, click, 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 click. And if you want to get in touch with us right away, send us an email, churcheslamepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and you know what, Scott, I was just thinking, I left out something I'd heard about the Dalai Lama, which I think is actually pretty cool. Like, when somebody asked him in this interview, like, who's your favorite Christian? And he said, Rob Bell.
That is so deep. Yeah, That's right. That's right. Good call, man.
Yeah, hand to God, this is truth. I am not making this up at all.
Nice. That is so good. Yep. That's a good call. I remember that as well. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, Rob, we're so sorry. We keep having these conversations and not including you in them. And I'm sure that you have much more intelligent things to say. Words is hard. Much more intelligent things to say on all these topics than we could ever put together. Yeah. It will happen. It will happen.
And, and I promise, like, if I'll do whatever it takes, if I need to re-record every Numa video, but without wearing a shirt, I will.
Wow. Those are strong words.
And if you've never seen me with a shirt on, then you don't want to see me without it on. I reflect light like a mirror, like the sun coming off of my chest will make your eyes melt out of your head, like the end of Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark.
Wow, nice.
Yeah,
there we go.
It gets ugly quick.
Nice. All right, man, lead us out of here.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate it, and don't forget to reach out to us in comments if you want to send us a story of your own, or just harass us more personally. Email us. It's like we're out there. We're ready for it. We just want to have this be a place where we can all engage and be cool. And with that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift his countenance upon you and to give you his peace. Amen.